online and offline courses to ensure they are reskilled and they are up to date and they are able to adapt to the changes that are happening across board. The second is the redefining productivity and human-machine collaboration. You know, honestly, AI is not a replacement to our creative thinking. So the other day I was in a university and we were talking about higher ed reforms. And the Vice Chancellor there was telling me that almost all the letters, permissions that students give for availing medical or whatever leaves, they were saying that everything is out of a chat GPT this day and age. So my concern is our creative thinking cannot be outsourced to AI. So it's very, very important to look at the fine line in the way we're going to redefine productivity and human interaction. And the third vertical, as I said, is reimagine and reimagine inclusion. One challenge that I've seen every industrial revolution bring about is the divide between the haves and have-nots. And I'm genuinely concerned, and the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has also raised this point multiple times, where the divide with AI should not grow. In fact, it should be a bridge and not a barrier for economic progress. So as a government, we are really excited on how we can use this AI revolution to bridge the gap between urban and rural and ensure that the underserved are really skilled. And AI enables us to build an amazing platform to do that. To sum it all up, the age of AI is here. It is not going to be a threat to humanity, but I believe it is an invitation to elevate humanity. And future will be built by us, by the thought leaders who are sitting here. I am a policy maker, I am a politician, I understand these two sectors quite well. But my ability to understand the corner of AI or where the turn is going to be is not there. But you understand this better. And all of us together should reimagine the way we're going to interact, the way we're going to do things together. And what we as a state here offer is a platform that will stand the test of time and politics, that will live its sense of purpose and ensure that the changes that we bring about is not merely cosmetic, but it's fundamental. And it will transform the way people of Andhra Pradesh, people of India will embrace and use AI going forward. So it's important that all of us ensure that future of work is not just about productive but purposeful. It's not just automated but augmented. It's not just intelligent but inclusive. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, thank you. Thank you very much for your insights onto what the impact, what we should try as a country, as government, as individuals, try and see how we can get the right leverage from AI. I'll now hand it over to Debjani. Debjani, if you could, what I'll request all the panelists, Debjani, maybe you can start. If you can make maybe 3 to 5 minutes of initial comments on how do you see AI shaping up, how do you see that impacting jobs or wider impact of, and from your vantage point, particularly how government is looking at it and how government is looking at frontier technologies would be very, very helpful. Over to you, Debjani.
Thank you, Rajiv. Hope I'm audible. Respected Minister, all distinguished guests on stage in the room, a very good morning. And Minister Lokesh, I'm very sorry I couldn't be there in person and experience the beautiful city, hoping to make up for it very soon. But a huge thanks to CII for the invite. Since this session is about AI and jobs, I'm so glad that, Minister, you said what you did, because I think it is time that we set to rest this debate that has been going on for a very long time on whether AI will impact jobs or not. The short answer, yes, it will. And it is important that we acknowledge this upfront, because that's only half the story. We need to now focus our time, our energy to what really matters, which is the other half of the story. How can India turn this disruption into a massive opportunity? So as you said, job transitions driven by technology, they are not new. We have seen them from the printing press, textile automation, computers. Every wave disrupted jobs, but they created many more, and sometimes they created better ones, most times actually. So the job disruption, as I keep saying, is just one half of the story. And to understand the full picture, the Niti Frontier Tech Hub, along with the industry partners, undertook a very detailed study of India's 8 million tech workforce, of which 6 million is in the tech industry, 2 million in other industries. And let me, in these 3 minutes, share very briefly what the key findings were. First, yes, jobs will be disrupted. Areas like software development, customer experience, call centers, data entry operators, etc. AI is already giving a 15 to 20% productivity gain. And we believe this will get to around 40 to 50% very soon. This, we believe, will lead to around a 2 million disruption in the tech roles in India in the next 3 years. But that is again only half the picture. AI is also creating an entirely new universe of jobs, but it's very different. The jobs that are getting created are very different from the jobs that are getting displaced. These jobs are far more specialized. So roles like prompt engineer, AI DevOps engineer, AI architects, none of them existed 5 years back. You go and search Google or whatever your search engine is to see when these names started propping up. They started coming up in 2022. And today, they employ thousands of people globally and in India. So, but what we are seeing is there won't be one single large job category like we've had in the past, like data entry operator, which employed millions of people. Instead, what we will have is a combined growth of many specialized roles, which we expect will expand India's tech workforce significantly. And our estimate is it will add around 4 million more jobs to the country in the next few years, provided the tech spend stay the course. That's a major assumption we are building in. And two, we are building the right skills in the country. So if we have to change this narrative, and I would sincerely request Andhra to take the lead in changing this narrative, the narrative has to shift from job loss to job transformation. And as we talk about job transformation, 3 things we need to look at. First, work will change. So we apply what we call a 3W lens. Work will change, as I've said. Second, workers will change. Today, a developer, it's not going to be enough for a developer to just know coding. They have to know LLM APIs, for example. QA engineers will need to know edge case analysis, for example. So the job roles are changing, the worker roles are changing. And third, the workforce pyramid is changing. The routine entry-level jobs that you've had at the starting point, at the end of the pyramid, these are shrinking. The mid-level jobs are getting way more specialized. And then there's a new top layer of hyper-specialized jobs that is emerging, AI architects, AI DevOps, etc., etc. And this is a shift we cannot ignore as we build out the skills framework. So I'll sum up by saying AI is not going to create millions of similar jobs, but it will create thousands of deeply specialized jobs, which will result in millions of employment for the country. And we believe that if we can act with urgency, coherence, our tech and CX workforce can grow from 8 million today to 12 to 13 million by 2031, positioning India as one of the world's largest AI talent powerhouse. But there is a need for coherence. And this is why the Niti Frontier Tech Hub, in its study, has recommended that we need a national AI talent mission, which is a whole of government approach that brings together the different skilling initiatives that exist in silo into a national effort. So in closing, the difference between job loss and job creation, I strongly believe, will depend entirely on the choices we make today. We have the talent, we have the scale, and I do believe we have the intent. So now what we need is urgency, collaboration, and unity of purpose. And Minister, as Niti Frontier Tech Hub, we would love to partner with you, with CII, to see how Andhra Pradesh, the framework that you're building, how that can create a framework for the rest of the country to achieve this purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debjani. Very clear comments. I think very similar to some of the findings that we have in the report, that it's the nature of jobs that will change, and how, as a country, as a society, how we equip ourselves to be ready for that change will determine our future with AI. So thank you very much. I will now hand it over. Maybe we'll start from this corner here. Joe is my partner in crime in EY. He is based in the Valley. Just came here for a day. So Joe, it'll be great to share your perspective. You heard a little bit about where India is, but it'll be great to get your perspective on what's happening around the world, in the world of AI, in context of jobs and generally overall how the development is going on.
Thank you, Rajiv, and thank you for the hospitality to CII. It's always amazing to be in India, and the hospitality of the people is something that I think is really special. From an innovation perspective, I think what's important is every single client and every single organization and every single government around the world is asking this same set of questions. The speed of technology evolution is something none of us have ever seen. And so really there's three key components that are going to be required in this next wave of transformation. One is around the digital workforce. And when you think about the digital workforce, and we're in India today, what you're looking for is digitally native and AI-led workforce. India actually has the youngest workforce and the most generative AI usage in the world. So India is really well positioned from a workforce perspective. That's number one. The second component around the next wave of AI evolution is data infrastructure. So without data, there is no AI, and the data infrastructure is so critical. That includes everything from the infrastructure that the government sets up. It includes digital commerce, as well as the network capability that is in place. And again, India, I think, is leading the way from that perspective. The third is what we've talked a lot about already today, which is, I refer to it as the innovation muscle. So innovation muscle means the training, the reskilling, the culture, the entrepreneurial spirit of the organization or the country is going to be actually, in my opinion, the most important component as we think about the future of jobs. Now, to be clear, and I think we've heard this today, I think every industry is going to have a massive transformation as a result of AI. Every industry will be impacted. We are seeing some industries impacted more quickly than others. For example, finance and professional services. Those jobs can be, those jobs today that are repeatable, they can actually be automated with agentic AI. But every industry, from manufacturing to healthcare to life sciences to consumer packaged goods, will be impacted by AI. So when we think about jobs of the future, what we think about is there's three components. Level one is humans plus AI. That's actually what a lot of us are experiencing today. We're using Copilot, we're using other tools and technologies to help us do our jobs better. Some productivity gains, some quality gains, but not significant change yet. What I think is going to be really significant is level two, which is where humans manage agents. So if you think about that, that means that you need to onboard the agents, you have to recruit the agents, you have to train the agents, you have to certify the agents. This is an entirely new workforce that doesn't currently exist. That's going to be a big area of job growth. Level three is actually where humans are managing intelligent orchestration of agents plus physical AI. So that's when things really start to progress very quickly, when you talk about agents and physical AI. And if you think about the job growth there, for example, physical AI, we talk about the actual data required to simulate these robots. We talk about the testing required to simulate these robots, and then the certification to put these in place. Some components around sovereign AI are really critical as well. So how do you actually orchestrate that at the local level, whether it's within a country or jurisdiction? So to me, as I think about India, I think that from a global perspective, it's massively ripe for really taking advantage of this next AI evolution. You have the right digital infrastructure in place. You certainly have the right talent. And I think the key is going to be, can we put together the right innovation muscle to train the next generation of workforce as quickly as possible? Because the world needs India to be successful, because that's going to be the next wave of growth from a technology perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. You're right. I think both in terms of skilled workforce and also the amount of data that we have. I think if we can tap into that, whether using sovereign data or sovereign AI or other things, and also skilling our workforce and building use cases here, I think we could at least, on the innovation side, we may be slightly behind, but at least on the use case side and leveraging that internally for our efficiencies, I think it's a great opportunity. I'll now hand it over to Professor Soumitra Datta. He is been a dean in some of the leading universities in the world and is very actively, both from an academia and industry side, very actively engaged in AI and modern technology. So it'll be great to get your perspective, Professor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and good morning to everyone. We have already heard a number of very interesting comments, so I'll just try and complement that with some perhaps slightly contrarian perspectives. As a professor in academia, I'm very worried when I read reports like yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, when the journal is predicting that the 2026 class is seeing the worst year in terms of employment that they have seen in more than a decade. When I look at not just, for example, there's a lot of talk of reskilling, which is very important, I don't deny that, but what about the millions of young graduates coming out of university today? What about their jobs? What about their careers? I think these are very important questions ahead of us. Now, why do I raise this perspective? And just to get you involved a little bit in the discussion, let me just pose a question to you. And this is where I want you to raise your hand. How many of you think today AI, whatever you define as AI, is roughly equal to human capability, human intelligence, roughly whatever you define as that? Just raise your hand if you believe today we are roughly equal. Okay, very few hands. In 5 years' time from now, raise your hands. How many of you think will be roughly equal? Okay, many more. In 10 years' time, how many of you think? Pretty much everyone. Okay, thank you. Now, if you look at what human beings do, we do essentially 3 buckets of things. So we interpret patterns in data, whether it's marketing data, machine data, whatever. We create new patterns, creativity that you talked about earlier, and we form human relationships. Empathy, that's very important. Take the first part, interpreting data. Hands down, machines do it better. No question about that. Creating new patterns, creativity. Maybe you have a question mark on that, but believe me, today machines are almost as good in almost every domain. Now, you still have human designers in many domains, but they often are just orchestrating the output of machines, suggesting possible patterns out there. So machines are there or better than human beings in most of that area. You might argue and say empathy is just for human beings. That's what machines cannot do. Have you heard of a bot in China called Yonsei, which is the real-life girlfriend of more than 600 million Chinese males? Now, this is not a joke. This is a real-life implementation of the movie Her, in which the man falls in love with the operating system, released in 2013. Now, you might think, well, these are funny examples, but guess what? Bots are now being used for psychological counseling, counseling teenagers, people with mental health conditions, and they're actually often seen as better than human counselors. So what I'm just trying to say is that if you look at all the 3 dimensions, analyzing patterns, creating new patterns, forming relationships, machines are actually getting there. Now, if you look at what's at stake out here, so on one hand, you have the pressure to keep on automating, improving efficiency, and that's where we talk about AI being used more and more in industry, and that's very good. Productivity is an important goal to achieve. But we also have to think about humanity, because as machines and people become two equal resources, it is our decisions as leaders in industry and government about how do we build the balance between humans and machines. That is a very important notion, that decisions that we make will decide which way we tip the balance. Now, what is at stake out here? If you tip the balance more towards productivity, of course, in principle, you're helping the economy. And the pressure will be to, in fact, push the economy, push productivity as much as possible. That's one reason why you will see a lot of companies now slowing down hiring, a lot of companies, in fact, using AI much more to do different things in their own organizations. But the risk out there is if you go too hard on that pedal of productivity and economy goes up, you risk human dignity. Because we as human beings, our core, the industrialized society in which we live, a core element of human dignity is the ability to be able to earn a living, to be able to do a day's work, and to be able to put food on the table for the family. Now, how do you in fact balance the two is, I think, the most important decision in front of us. And I don't think, honestly, today that most companies, most national governments are really looking at that in a sensible, deep manner. Today, the often politically correct approach is, well, technologies are to empower people. It'll make you better. It'll make you, in fact, more productive. And that's politically acceptable. That's politically more sellable. Even in the tech companies, it is an easier sales argument to say that, well, technology will actually enable you and help you become better. What about the fact of large-scale unemployment? What about the fact when people don't have full jobs? That is not an unreal prospect. Look at what's happened in agriculture, manufacturing, and services. Agriculture, mechanization in the West, employment has shrunk dramatically. Manufacturing, go to the latest manufacturing shops, typically in anywhere in the world, the number of people employed has become very, very small. It's mainly robots, mainly machines. In services, today, of course, you have a lot of people employed, but the reason for that is mainly that humanoid robots are not yet at the price value point at which you can use them to replace humans, because the cost ratio is just simply too high, the value ratio is too poor. So we're not yet at that point of replacement. What will happen in 10 years' time when humanoid robots will become cheap enough and good enough to replace replace a nurse, replace a hotel worker? That is the big question mark for us that we have to grapple with. So let me stop out there, but I just want to say that I think the real question, the real challenges out here that I don't think we are really fully addressing in government and industry.
Thanks, Soumitra. Thanks for a slightly different viewpoint. And just on humanoid robot, that's where China is investing the most. So if you go to China, their largest investment in AI is not computational AI, but humanoid robots. So that change will also come much, much faster than what we are anticipating. I'll now pass it on to Sharon. Sharon is an executive director, lead at Korea University. Sharon, your opening remarks, please.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Although I study technology, it really evades me. I really appreciate the comments by my panelists. Maybe I thought of providing a little bit of a different perspective, given that instead of looking on top and in the future, I look in the reality right now. I'm Canadian, but I've been in India 17 years and vastly invested in talking to every corner in the rural areas in the field, and bringing back stories to forums like CII or even to the government to see what's going on. One of the key learnings, two things I learned from India. There are several decades in one country. Some people are at the forefront of the decade, like one of our panelists. I'll talk to you about the big majority are still in a previous decade that we need to bring in on board for the inclusion story the Honorable Minister has mentioned as well. The other thing I understood from India is averages don't work. India, you have to look at extremes to understand what's going on in this country. So given that I'm in front of a panelist and in front of a crowd of a lot of business people, I'll focus my work on the opportunity and the productivity topic, where I work a lot in the space of gender, where the topic of integrating women in the labor force is a huge one here. So I'll focus on the positive aspects of AI is to making women more visible. I think 70% of women businesses are at home. They don't have access to networks like men do. They cannot go outside. So I have seen a lot of positive aspects to see how can women be embedded in online platforms like ONDC, which are not perfect yet, but allows them to sort of like be more visible. And if women are more visible, they'll have better access and better opportunity to markets, but also finance. One of the key things of business is you need to have access to credit and finance and opportunities, no? So the opportunity offered by women is immense. I think women can have those digital trails, women can have access to networks and opportunity, and women could be more visible. So that's one aspect I feel that's very important. I think that would also increase a lot the work for women. The other aspect that I see as well that's a huge opportunity is digital-enabled work, where a lot of the women are frontline workers, where they're ASHA workers, Angawadi workers, and they're just starting to have access to digital to improve their productivity in their work. And that also trickles down to government. The quicker that these ASHA workers, these Angawadi workers, they are your data collector, the better that will impact also decision-making at the policy levels. For the Angawadi workers, you can see as well, the better they put the systems in the dashboard, the quicker the decisions the government can make in a centralized perspective, knowing that India is very heterogeneous as well. Even ASHA workers, Angawadi workers. The other perspective that we see a lot is this: we don't think about the AI system, and this is the decade that's different than your colleague, is that I remember the first thing when we started digital AI work, we talked to the ministry matey, Mr. Krishna, our secretary. Actually, the first task he asked us to look us in the PLI scheme, the Samsung and things like that, where the government of India gives a lot of money. And we see that that's one of the areas where women are enabling the AI ecosystem by chip production, etc. One of our high recommendations is one of the areas where women can contribute as an entry point, but it's very important that they're able to escalate that system, no? So what we've noticed, and when we studied the PLI scheme, is that yes, women are part of building AI, but they're at the low entry. So our recommendations would see you need to make sure that women are not just because they have small fingers and all, they can assemble stuff. How do we make sure that women have systems that enable them to grow and supervise? So we encourage the government to collect data on that front. I think that's quite critical. On that front as well, talking to the ministry, and this is a very India context. So India is a very big consumer and producer of digital AI. It's not a great designer. So, and very few women also are part of the design, and very few people in general. I think India itself designs their own maybe 15%, which is staggering. And I think that's where an area where you need to integrate and be more exclusive. Not only women, even people from remote communities, tribal areas. I've seen fabulous examples from that front. Lastly, I think one of the areas where we see a lot, and we call it maybe digital embedded work, and that relates to the colleague from Ernst & Young, where you see that there's a whole movement of gig economy happening in rural areas where, and it's a fabulous initiative from the Bashini, the Indian government, to try to democratize AI through languages. And I don't know if everyone saw the movie Human in the Loop recently, where they showcase that this allows women to be able to do work in their phone here. They can do maybe 10 hours of work when they can, when they're available in their local language. It also helps to integrate, making sure that biases that are in our regular work are not integrated in AI or digital, because I think the speed of AI and digital goes very quickly. So this is actually a great opportunity to make sure that we don't repeat that online. I think those are the opportunities, and we are working as well to make sure that women starting to have, it's not only having access to a phone. I see a lot of this initiative from the government say access to the phone. You need opportunity, you need initiative, you need support. And we've learned from some systems as well, like the government said, we will give a phone, but those phones break. Those phones need investment in data points every month, no? Those phones also need to be replaced. And that's critical as well to see. So there needs to be a whole big portion of India that needs to be integrated in all of that digital AI ecosystem there. I'll leave it to my colleague somewhere else, and a pleasure to connect, yeah.
Thanks, Sharon. We're sorry to interrupt, but we were running out of time. Jeremy, you're the last one My only request is if we can make it short. Sorry for this, but I know the minister has to leave. So, thank.
That's right. So actually, I think I'm supposed to join the minister shortly, and I'll come to that at the end. So first, it's really a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the hospitality of the government in Andhra Pradesh, of our partners at the CII, and all the people that I've met during the visit. I'd like to start with the challenge. We've heard a little bit on the numbers in India, from Joe also what that means in finance and professional services. The World Economic Forum has done research looking at 1 billion jobs globally. We interviewed 1,000 large companies across 55 countries and understood what this means for the future of their workforces. And what we saw is that we will lose roughly 92 million jobs in the next 5 years. 90 million jobs will disappear in the next 5 years. And that isn't even before we talk about all the jobs that need to be reskilled. But the good news is there's an opportunity to create 170 million new jobs. But those new jobs won't come on their own. It will take conscious action. It'll take programs from employers in how they design, how they reskill their resources. It'll require partnerships between universities, corporations, and the state to prepare the next generation of talent for those roles. It also means that we actually have to adapt to a new workforce, because many of those jobs won't come from the large traditional industries. They'll come from entrepreneurs. And those entrepreneurs will need new support networks. They'll need digital public infrastructure, building on what you have in India here with Aadhaar or UPI, but we'll also need a digital infrastructure that allows for cybersecurity, that allows for SMEs to be able to scale and unlock capabilities. So all those things are going to come together. So massive challenge, but also significant opportunity that requires conscious action. Now, one of the reasons I'm here today in Andhra Pradesh is because we think that Andhra Pradesh will be a hub for this future vision of how to create an economy that brings dignity and opportunity to employees. We look at programs like the Naipunyam with the expertise that'll actually have a skills database that we can actually train workers. We'll be launching today a Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, focusing on energy and cybersecurity. Because before you get to the AI and before you need the data, you need the energy to actually power the data centers, to power the algorithms. And you also need to make sure that it's secure. And this is one of the reasons we focus on cybersecurity. There's roughly 4 million jobs that are in shortfall today in cybersecurity. So this creates an opportunity for new workforces, new roles, and new opportunities. And last is we really appreciate, I think there's roughly 70% of the graduates here in Andhra Pradesh are focused on STEM roles. That will prepare them well to enter the new workforce, but they'll also need to be continuously skilled, continuously updating their education in those opportunities. And this is something that we look forward to partnering with Andhra Pradesh to help prepare that future workforce, to help prepare the future economy. And I think together we can contribute to a nation and a global economy that's more prosperous, more equitable, and more meaningful for everyone in it. So thank you, Rajiv, and thank you to the Minister for hosting us here today.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, you've heard different perspectives, different dimensions of this. And I know you have a grand vision, and the state has a grand vision on how you leverage AI, technology, various new themes that are coming around the world. So one is just general thoughts on what you've heard, but also I'm particularly keen on, for AI to be successful, how do you capture data? And what are you doing as a state to be effective from a data standpoint?
Well, after this session, I thought I'll have some answers, but I walk out with more questions. Thanks to Soumitra here. But the points raised are very valid. I think we need to think through the nuances as we go about, doing what we are supposed to do in this industrial revolution. See, as a state, we're talking about energy transition. It's easy said than done because wind speeds predictability, cloud formation, so solar efficiency, then your ability to sort of pump up traditional forms of energy to sort of give the transition, especially with data centers that require higher reliability, is a big challenge. And that is exactly where we're using AI. Our ability to predict, understand this. In terms of state, we are one of the very few states, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised that I had counterparts in Australia at the state level who have something called Minister for Customer Service. It's similar to what we are trying to achieve in real-time governance, is how do you deliver governance at the doorstep of the citizen whilst keeping in mind the entire data that we are able to capture and give a much more predictive analysis. So a great example of that is how we've handled the recent cyclone, which we thought will be a lot more intensive, but our ability to understand where it's going to land, the speed at which, the track, we were far better than the other institutions out there because we have over a period of time built those data sets, we are able to hone on those data sets, and that will again be very core to us as we go forward. So as a state, we are continuing to collect the data points that are relevant for us to ensure better governance delivery. But then yes, we also have to keep in mind the ethical framework on how this data is going to be used and not be used against underprivileged sections of the society. So that's equally going to be important. And that is why we have something called the Core Data Authority that has the framework in place to ensure that this is not used against them. But then honestly, I think all of us sitting here are just trying to understand what is AI, its implications on humanity and how it's going to change our lives here. Definitely 5 years from now, maybe the 35th Partnership Summit that we're going to do here, I think we'll come back and reflect on whether we got our predictions right or we were off. I think because all of us here are pretty much guessing where we'll be 5 years from now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we are run out of time. I think only thing I probably like to add, Honorable Minister, and hearing everyone, very insightful comments from all the panelists, is it is a reality, and the question is, how do you make the most of it? I mean, you can see half full, half empty. Different people can have different perspectives. But if this is going to come, then as a country, as a society, as an organization, how do you make the most from this? Be ready, be prepared for this transition. And I think that's what, at every level, I can see that there's a worry, there is fear, but there's also some sense of opportunity of change. And I think what Debjani mentioned, what they're looking at from a government standpoint, if they're able to create that institution, that will be really good. So before I let you go, CII, in partnership with EY, we have put together a report, and we would be really grateful if you could launch the report, which captures the present state of agentic AI in India.
May I invite Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee and Mr. Hari Balaji, leader EY India's Center of AI Excellence, to please come on stage for the release of this report. Ladies and gentlemen, this report is on AI. Is India ready for agentic AI? Ladies and gentlemen, the report on AI is India ready for agentic AI. Let's have a huge round of applause for the release of this very important report. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for doing the honors in releasing this report. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please invite Dr. Mrs. Suchitra Kela, Vice President of CII and co-founder and Managing Director of Bharat Biotech International Limited, to kindly come on stage. We have the MOU exchange between CII and Bharat Biotech Limited. I request Ms. I'll request Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General of CII, to kindly join in for the MOU exchange. Ladies and gentlemen, this is between CII and Bharat Biotech Limited. Through this initiative, CII Bharat Biotech will equip 30,000 youth in Vijayawada with soft and employability skills and provide career counseling and placements over the next 5 years. This is being done under the gracious presence of our Honorable Minister, the MOU's exchange between CII and Bharat Biotech Limited. Let's have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We will now present the mementos. May I please request President CII to kindly do the honors in presenting the mementos. May I request Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee to kindly say a few words on the report. May I please request President CII to kindly present a memento to Honorable Minister. Let's have a huge round of applause for Honorable Minister. He's indeed given a lot of his precious time and been deeply involved and participated in the sessions, giving his deep insights and guidance. He's doing the honors of presenting the mementos to all the speakers.
After you are done, I just want to make a small one, not even one line.
I request our speakers to kindly come forward. May I please request speakers to kindly come forward for the memento presentation. May I request Ms. Sharon Buter to please come forward for the memento presentation. Can we have the applause going, ladies and gentlemen? And request President CII to please do the honors in presenting and while stating Honorable Minister. And Honorable Minister has decided that he will instead felicitate President CII, as he says he's the host. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause. Before we conclude this session, I just want to invite Dr. Mrs. Suchitra Kela. She would be saying a few words regarding this very important MOU exchange. Madam, may I please request you to say a few words?
I just would like to make a small remark to the Honorable Minister and to the Government of Andhra Pradesh. Yesterday I had made a statement about our commitment in ensuring that we will participate in skilling and livelihoods and employment generation for the state of Andhra Pradesh. And here is, today we have just demonstrated a very small step in that into that goal of ours, and we will extrapolate it further going in the few years, in the following years, take it as much as possible in order to upscale, skill, create livelihoods and employment for the youth and women of Andhra Pradesh. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for your time in accommodating this request for us. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suchitra Kerala. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we conclude the session and we'll be immediately moving on to the valedictory session which will be happening here in this hall. So you all requested to kindly remain with us and we will just make the necessary table arrangements before moving on to the valedictory session. Can you kindly not switch off this mic, please? We are now going to start the valedictory session. May I please request people onto my left not to crowd this area? We have the Honorable Chief Minister arriving in just a few minutes to the stage. So I'll request people onto my right, onto my left to kindly clear this area, and also people at the back, if I may request everyone to kindly take the respective seats.
Check, check. Check, check.
Please don't switch off the mic on this podium. Kindly let it be on.
Hal. Check, check. Test, test. Check, check, check. Test, test one. Test, test one.